At a time when filmmakers had to spend thousands of dollars daily on helicopters for aerial shots, one company came to the rescue by replacing them with a small flying machine, saving millions. Even though it's a Chinese company, they are being loved and praised all over the world. Why? Because their products are the best in the industry. Today, DJI is everywhere, from drones used to shoot films in Hollywood to the ones that you can keep inside your bedroom. But also, for a group, these drones are a lethal weapon in warfare. Welcome to the story of the king of drones. We are unraveling the entire story of DJI, their rise from a struggling business to a billion-dollar drone empire. It all began in 1980, when a young boy named Frank was born in Hangzhou, China. Frank Wang was born to a middle-class family. His mother was a teacher and his father was an engineer. Later, when Frank's father had to move to Shenzhen for work, they had to decide whether to take Frank also with them. Instead, they left Frank with his relatives in Hangzhou so he could continue attending elementary school. Frank wasn't a kid with an outstanding academic record, rather he had a pretty average performance. When Frank was small, there was a children's book which he was so obsessed with reading. The name of the book was The Old Man Who Used His Brain, and it had a picture of a helicopter on the cover. This book created an obsession for aircrafts in little Frank, so he continued to read a lot of books and articles related to aviation and robotics. When he was 21 years old, he got into East China Normal University in Shanghai to learn about electronics. However, soon he understood that the education he was receiving wasn't aligning with what he wanted to learn. Frank dreamt big. Actually, he wanted to get into one of the world's top universities like Stanford or MIT, but his luck fell short when all his applications got rejected. So in 2003, he applied to the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology to start his higher education. Frank enrolled in the Department of Electronic Engineering that had a good reputation for its special teaching techniques. They had an experienced staff with professors from overseas universities as well. They frequently held robotic competitions among students, and for the ones who emerged winners, they even found investors to fund startup businesses. Even though Frank couldn't attend his dream university, the time spent in Hong Kong changed his life. Frank was an active participant in these competitions once he became the champion in the university, and next time, his team was third in the Asia-Pacific region. Inspired by robotics and aviation, Frank selected flight control systems related to the autonomous hovering of electronic aircraft as the topic for his thesis. Even though Frank was very enthusiastic about taking this topic, his academic advisors were not very confident about it. They said it was too complex for an undergraduate thesis and might be beyond his capabilities. However, Frank somehow wanted to do it, although he knew it was going to be a long haul. He risked his graduation grades and the chance of getting into a good university for his master's degree. Frank's desire to pursue this topic was much higher than worrying about anything else. But unfortunately, things turned around very badly for Frank. During the project defense, Frank accidentally wrecked the model he was developing, and he received a C grade for his final exam. He was very upset about it because he lost his chance of getting into a master's program at any university. However, there's a belief that if you are working really hard on something, luck turns to fall in your way. Something like that happened to Frank. There was a prominent professor at this university named Li Zixiang. Professor Li saw the model Frank built, and he was so impressed by Frank's enthusiasm on his project. Professor Li wanted to make Frank one of his students because he saw the potential that Frank and his project had. Li Zixiang was a famous professor who had worked at universities like MIT and NYU. He was also the founder of the Automation Center at the University of Hong Kong, which nurtured students in areas like entrepreneurship and robotic competitions with the aim of making it a hub of research and development. Frank soon became one of the outstanding students of Professor Li. Frank also regarded Professor Lee as a mentor who provided support and resources. Lee understood the depth of Frank's project and why it was beyond the capacity of a single individual. Lee constantly monitored his progress and backed him up with assistance. Professor Lee found expert professors, students, and all the support Frank needed. Not only that, he was also able to find most of the funding needed to carry on his project. Frank was living in a very small apartment in Shenzhen, where he barely managed to sleep and work. In 2006, with some of his friends, Frank started the DJI technology company in a left-out warehouse. DJI stands for Dajang Innovations, which means Great Frontier Innovations in Chinese. Frank didn't let down any of the efforts put in by Professor Lee. By the end of 2006, he was able to develop the first flight control system. Combining that, he sold a fully assembled remote-controlled helicopter. Once Frank sold the first model helicopter, he started seeing himself as an entrepreneur instead of a hobbyist. At this time, there were no well-known or mass-producing brands for this kind of remote-controlled helicopters. Since Frank also had limited funds to operate his business, he had to assemble everything by hand. This limited the number of helicopters he could sell. However, there were not many developments in the UAV industry, as there was no clear understanding of the commercial or industrial usage of UAVs. Frank was having a tough time with his business because he didn't have a clear goal on what he was doing. Actually, he was not making any progress. The technical challenges they were facing couldn't be solved in a day or two. They were working days and nights to fulfill the orders they received, and on some occasions they had to turn down some orders. After a year's struggle, Frank and his small team were exhausted. Frank said he was thinking of shutting down the business at one point. However, things started to turn around in a very exciting way for Frank and his business. When Frank was putting out his first UAV to the market, the conditions and timing were not quite right. The main problem was that consumers were seeing drones only as toys because their industrial value was very low. Frank was in his early days of entrepreneurship, so he actually didn't have a clear vision on what he wanted and what his company wanted to be in the future. He was having a tough time and soon was in debt as he wasn't making enough sales to cover the costs. But, yet again, he was very lucky that Professor Lee came to the rescue by investing his personal funds into the business. Professor Lee had faith in Frank because he focused on new technology. After 2 years of struggle, in 2008, Frank came out with a breakthrough by creating a $30,000 helicopter UAV, a better version of his previous model. During this time, $30,000 was a huge amount, but still people wanted to buy it because it was a new experience. Finally, Frank saw a light at the end of the tunnel. He was successful with this product because people could use it for minor industrial purposes as well. Frank designed it to have a proper industrial value because the drone had an efficient payload of 5 kilograms, which could carry a professional camera or a package. Also, a gimbal could be fitted to reduce vibrations to take some decent photos. It was not only DJI who were producing drones in the Chinese market. There were several other companies like XAG and Unix, but there was one highlighting feature that separated DJI from its competitors. It was the ability to hover in the air, a very complex technological advancement in drones at that time. This enabled some new tasks in several industries like stable close-up filming and precise autonomous delivery. It was Frank's firmware that made it distinguished from the others. DJI's third-generation flight control system made a revolutionary impact, enabling features like reconnaissance, filming, mapping, transportation, and airdrops. Frank literally invaded the Chinese market with his drone. One of the initial moments where drones were used was the earthquake in Sichuan in 2008. Frank filmed the destroyed areas using his drones, taking over 1,000 photographs, which immensely helped the medical aid and recovery efforts. Even though DJI didn't become popular among people, it certainly became very popular among the industries in China. Military and defense institutes, industrial enterprises, research institutes, and aviation universities were willing to pay over $30,000 to acquire Frank's products. because they didn't have such type of product before. After 2008, Frank didn't have to worry about funding for company projects. However, even though he got many inquiries from industrial and state customers, Frank had a different idea in his mind. He had to make a very serious decision about the future of the company. Frank had two paths to position his drone business. One was targeting state customers like the State Grid Corporation of China, produce whatever they want and establish the company in one or several industries. The other option was to develop consumer drones for regular people like you and me. But he knew that to earn a significant amount of money, they would need to achieve a high volume of sales. Frank chose the second option. Actually, it wasn't a difficult decision for him. His passion for creating new and innovative things overshadowed his interest in collaborating with large corporations, which would limit his opportunities. DJI's focus was not only limited to the Chinese market, they wanted to establish itself as a global brand because there was a good opportunity. In 2010, DJI released its fourth generation of its flight controlling system called the Ace 1. During this time, it was the smallest and lightest, but also the most stable. DJI gradually expanded its market by exporting its products to Europe and the US, earning a substantial amount of foreign revenue. One day, Frank came across a problem he never faced before. This was with one of his distributors in New Zealand. The most popular product this distributor selling wasn't drones, it was camera stabilizers. This created a sense of doubt in Frank's mind because Frank primarily focused on drones. But why were camera stabilizers selling better? After a thorough investigation, Frank found out that local customers were buying stabilizers in large quantities and installing them on quadcopters. The stabilizers were used to mount small cameras, enabling simple aerial photography. Now this triggered Frank because it opened a new aspect to look at his business. By this time, some companies had already developed quadcopters. In 2010, the French company Parrot released the world's first consumer quadcopter, the AR. It became famous very quickly. Also, the same year, Chinese company XAG introduced the first Chinese consumer quadcopter, racking over $1.5 million in its first year. Moreover, Frank identified that compared to single-rotor drones, quadcopters were easier to operate and significantly cheaper. But still, these competitor devices couldn't hover or fly autonomously like DJI drones, and also, they were still considered toys. However, because they were first to the market, they turned in some quick profits. After seeing this success, Frank also wanted to develop a quadcopter. He wasn't rushing to produce one because building a quadcopter wasn't a difficult task since he had already done the difficult part of developing the core technology behind multi-rotor drones. It only took 6 months for Frank to develop its multi-rotor drone system. DJI's 5th generation flight control system could manage drones with 4 to 6 propellers. Even though the competitors entered the market first, they still couldn't solve the problem of hovering. With this latest release, DJI stepped into the filming industry, writing a new chapter in their book. The dreams that Frank saw started to become a reality slowly. Getting into the filming industry was quite an unexpected turn for DJI. However, DJI saw a huge opportunity in the market, and they didn't hesitate to grab it. How DJI got to today's position wasn't actually a smooth journey. They had to go through a series of events. In 2011, Frank met Colin Ginn, a reality TV actor, at a remote-controlled helicopter competition in Indiana. Colin owned an aerial photography company, and he was looking for a solution to stabilize footage taken by drones. Drones had already made a huge impact on the film industry by replacing helicopters, which cost about $10,000 per day to operate. But there was a significant problem that needed to be addressed when using drones in cinematography. The high-quality cameras they used for filming were very heavy, so obtaining stability was a big challenge. The stabilizers needed to have a high payload capacity and a wide range of motion. However, DJI took this challenge and successfully came up with a gimbal to address this issue, which could rotate 360 and maintain stability at any angle. This was the breakthrough DJI was looking for, because it could support high-quality cameras like Sony and Panasonic to capture scenes in high definition. In 2012, DJI officially introduced the ZenMuse C15, the 3-axis gimbal with a price tag of $2,000. It was an instant hit. Orders were flooding in to an extent that the gimbal itself made hundreds of millions, leaving the competitors far way behind the race. Right after that, in 2013, they released the S800, the 6-rotor drone for filmmaking equipped with a ZenMuse gimbal. These products helped DJI to build its monopoly in Hollywood film production. Now, it was the time for DJI to introduce its first ever consumer-targeted quadcopter, the DJI Phantom. Even though DJI had no prior experience with quadcopters, they were very successful in their first release because even beginners could handle it with little practice. It could hover in the air, land automatically, and support a GoPro camera. Moreover, the cost of the drone was only $1,000, which was less than competitors. It was a revolutionary product that rapidly took over the global drone market due to its technological mastery and user-friendliness. We already know that Frank was the pioneer behind the success of DJI so far, but there was another person who played an important role in DJI to build its global presence. That was the American actor Colin Ginn. He was a fairly well-known figure and an excellent salesperson. He supported Frank to take DJI into the USA. He was an excellent salesperson because Americans didn't even realize that DJI was a Chinese company. Taking the next step, Frank and Colin established DJI's North American branch, with Colin owning 48% of the shares. However, this partnership lasted only for a very short time. A serious conflict occurred between Frank and Colin regarding a collaboration between DJI and GoPro, the American action camera brand. Until this moment, DJI built all its components by themselves. The only exception was the cameras fitted to its gimbals. During this period, GoPro was designing powerful compact cameras with excellent stabilization, making it an ideal camera for DJI drones. However, under Colin's influence, the two companies tried to reach an agreement to split the profits in the ratio of 64% to 36% in favor of GoPro. Frank wasn't happy about it. He said it should be 50-50, which was a much fairer split. Colin didn't want to settle in for 50%, and the deal fell through, ending their partnership as well. Colin demanded 16% of all DJI shares in exchange for his 48% shares in the North American branch. Frank said the shares were not worth at least 1%, and he closed all the corporate accounts in North America by transferring them back to China. He fired all employees of the North American branch. Frank and Colin later reached an out-of-court settlement where Colin received a certain amount of money as part of the settlement. When Colin ended the partnership with DJI, he took his entire team and joined 3D Robotics, the main competitor of DJI in America. They even tried to develop a drone with GoPro to compete with DJI, but it made an absolute disaster for GoPro. 3D Robotics could never defeat DJI. They made a wise decision by diverting their business from developing drones into developing software for drones. Within a year, DJI came up with their own 4K camera series and integrated it into the Phantom 3 with a built-in gimbal. This gave birth to the action camera series of DJI, now a main competitor of GoPro. Since then, there has been no third-party involvement in the production of DJI products, which is one of the most crucial factors for their lasting success. Building everything within the company has been Frank's best decision so far. Ever since then, things have been fascinating for Frank and DJI. They have expanded their portfolio into a wide range of products. DJI have become the pioneer of content creation, you'll agree with me. So how did they do it? From 2013 onwards, they have released a wide range of consumer drones, including iconic series like the Mavic and Air. Even though they mainly focus on consumer drones, they didn't let go of industrial opportunities. Frank's empire is now having a workforce of 14,000 employees. You know, being a Chinese company, the biggest challenge is confronting the US sanctions. However, unlike other Chinese companies, DJI has confronted it successfully because it doesn't rely on any outside party. The US has already restricted and prohibited the purchase and usage of DJI drones for federal agencies and government contractors with the aim of reducing US reliance on Chinese technology. This would give American drone manufacturers like Skydio a chance to capture the American market. But are the US officers happy about this decision? No. They are not happy, and they are the ones who question it. What is the reason? DJI drones have made their lives so much easier and no other brand is near to replace it. However, the current share of DJI in the entire drone market is more than 70%. They are the only billion-dollar drone company in the world. In 2018, DJI held a major funding round with the aim of raising just $1 billion. Usually, when companies work with investors, the investors decide the terms and conditions. However, in DJI's case, the situation was different. The company was so financially strong that too many investors wanted to get involved. DJI announced, "Since everyone wants to invest, let's hold an auction. The winner would be the one who offered the highest bid." These terms seemed heavily in DJI's favor, yet many investors were still eager to participate. After the announcement, nearly 100 investors applied, offering a total of $3 billion, far more than the company had expected. To handle the overwhelming interest, DJI turned the process into a competition to narrow down the applicants. So, what did DJI do with all this money? They invested this money in optical technologies like powerful cameras, sensors, thermal imaging, and radar technology. Their strategy had two approaches. One was acquiring small companies, and the other was poaching specialists from top companies. They poached many specialists from Japanese camera manufacturers like Nikon, Sony, Sigma, Panasonic, and Olympus. One of their notable purchases is the Swedish camera manufacturer Hasselblad. This laid a solid foundation for their high-quality DJI cameras, including DJI Ronin 4D. We get the question, what makes DJI stand out from its competitors? There are several reasons. First is its location. DJI is located in Shenzhen. Shenzhen is like the innovation hub in China, where they have easy access to electronic components. Secondly, DJI has a robust patent portfolio. Frank himself has about 37 patents, and DJI has about 18,000 patents, out of which 11,000 are still active. The local and foreign competitors have often faced lawsuits from DJI. They have a strong research and development team that comes up with new and innovative features and series. Thirdly, there is higher availability of products and after-service support because DJI has built a strong support service network globally. However, recently, there was a big backlash for DJI drones for something they were not directly involved in. They have made drones for a variety of uses, but never thought these would be used as a military tool. These drones are heavily being used in wars now, especially in the Ukraine-Russia war. Small cheap drones like Mavics are playing a crucial role in this war. They attach bombs to drones and hover into the enemy target and blast itself or drop them using 3D releases. DJI is not responsible for this because they are not directly supplying these to any army. They have already stopped their sales in both countries. These are purchased in bulk in third-party countries and transported to the two armies, which DJI is fully out of the control. However, finally, the money flows into DJI. According to their reports, in 2021, they earned a revenue of about $4 billion, and the specialty of DJI is that they have a profit margin of about 20 to 25%, which is much higher than that of other Chinese tech companies. DJI has become the go-to brand for drones, gimbals, action cameras, portable mics, and pocket cameras. Many people love this brand because of its higher quality and reliability. If you're still watching the video, you are a true lover of DJI. Tell us about your favorite DJI product and the best experience you had with it. we have reached the end of another documentary about a tech giant. Thank you very much for watching till the end. We'll meet up again like this in a new video soon.